Hello, welcome back to 1874 in association with NordVPN. You can get a huge discount and 4 months free by heading to 1874.io/NordVPN. And it's completely risk-free because Nord offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. It helped me yesterday get some extra football in my life, so it's well worth signing up if you want to use our link. And to be fair, I've literally just read what it says at the bottom of the screen. So if you want to know more about NordVPN, feel free to sign up, and that will help us as a channel. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, hot in a vest in my office, joined by the Athletics Aston Villa correspondent Jacob Tanswell. I did a live yesterday. I was annoyed after the game. I've calmed down a little bit now, but I still think there's many points that I would have raised yesterday that were pretty valid. So I've got someone alongside me now to kind of shoot the breeze with around Villa yesterday, someone who was at the game in the press box, as always. Jacob Tanswell, sneaky contract boy, how are you?
Doing very well, thank you, mate. Yesterday was terrible. I've been pretty busy this bank holiday weekend. I went back to Southampton to collect a few things for this thing I'm doing tomorrow, and hence why I'm actually in Leeds at the moment as we talk. Nothing Villa related, but yeah, tomorrow morning or Monday morning I'll be swept away doing something in Leeds. So I'm here in a hotel room now, speaking to you.
I know what it is, and it's quite exciting. I would say I'm looking forward to seeing how you come out of it. In all honesty, Jacob, from what you've told me,
I'm
earlier.
excited, but yeah, I'm going to be deeply humiliated. So,
Okay. Talking of humiliations, that's a lovely segue. I mean, is a 1-0 ever a humiliation? Probably not, but a terrible day at the office again. 2 games in. It's not that we've only picked up 1 point, Jacob. It's that I don't even felt like we were going to score in either game. Toothless, stale are some of the words that I'm seeing bandied around, some of the words that I'm bandying around myself. How do you see it? Because you kind of got excited once in that press box yesterday.
No, it was absolutely abysmal. And I was either side of 2 other journalists who don't watch Villa that regularly. And I was just basically just moaning at a lot of the things I was seeing. And they actually asked, are you a Villa fan? And I was like, I'm not actually, but it's just so frustrating.
You should say yes, you are, because you are nowadays.
But I was just so frustrated by it. A lot of it. I didn't want to tweet anything out because I know obviously you get egg on your face and maybe too negative. But obviously, a lot of stoppages in the first half. And every time there's a stoppage, I was looking at the body language of the players. I thought, they're not going to score today. They're not going to do anything today because they looked like they had already played 120 minutes in the first half. They looked I wouldn't say tired, but they just looked like the body language was a bit down. They were insular. They weren't talking to each other. There was no rally. And I think McGinn went round once and said, come on, we've got to step it up. But no one else talked to each other. They were just staring into space whilst there was a break in play. And I just thought, these guys aren't on it today. I looked even in the warm-up, actually. I was really watching the warm-ups closely. I was looking at Brentford just do set plays. And then you watch Villa's doing the possession drill, as they always do. And I know it's a warm-up and you don't want to injure anyone and you want to take it easy. But the passing was bad. Like, it was going out of play, intercepting. And there wasn't really much pressure, but constant mistakes. And they go into their shooting. I think one hits the target in the whole shooting and goes over. And of course, you can't read too much into warm-ups, but I thought that was a really sloppy warm-up. So I started to feel like Villa aren't quite on it. And then the first half, the stoppages, and I don't think Brentford were that good. I think there's a few times Villa could got into the final third, and I thought Villa on a better day could score a few. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give them benefit of doubt. They'll come back second half. But as that carried on, I thought, you know what, they don't even deserve anything from it. They've been absolutely abysmal. And it's not just what happened on the day. It's just how preventable it all seemed to be, from the tactics, from the body language, the energy, the impetus of the players. I thought everything was poor on the day, and I think accountability needs to be taken. Of course, it's only day 2 in the season, so I don't want to go overboard, but a club of Villa standing and where they want to be, they can't be making those many mistakes and such easy, simple, avoidable mistakes on day 2 of the season.
It just felt like a general apathy everywhere. I've spoken to people who were in the away end as well, a bit of apathy in there, lots of empty seats for reasons that people will have seen on social media. Just not great, lethargic. The word I've constantly used is it just felt stale. I've said before that these players, I love these players. I really find it difficult to get on their back because of the days that they've given me. But a lot of them, I love a lot of them to bits. But when you're watching the lineup, it's hard to think that we haven't kind of gone backwards when certain things that I'm seeing in certain parts of the selection. It just wasn't fresh enough. And I said in the show yesterday that Brentford had just come off the back of a real kind of morale sapping defeat. The manager's probably under a bit of pressure even after game one because of who he is and how he's come into the job and the fact that he's never managed before. And Villa just make it easy for him. Just make sure he's got a smile on his face at the end of the game. And he's had probably as easy a day as he could have asked for off the back of what had happened in match week one. They had kind of one new player, Brentford, I think, in their team, in Ouattara. But even just having that one piece of freshness, it gave them something. It gave the fans something to get behind. And he was the one who was obviously responsible for the goal. And he had a couple of other dangerous moments as well. I don't even think he was brilliant, but they just didn't feel stale just because they had one new player. This could have been a Villa team from 2021, 2022. And, it's hard to I say that. Obviously, they have signed players who were in the team like Onana and Torres Tillemans who went past them. But the bulk of that team could have been in a Dean Smith or a Steven Gerrard side. And it just felt very stale. I keep using the same word because it's the only word I can think of to describe what I mean.
Yes, 7 of the starting 11 were working under Gerrard, and really, if Ezri Konsa was available, it could have well be 8. So it shows you a couple of things, really, how good Emery has been to get talent off these players, but also necessarily the recruitment not really impacting the first team. And the piece I've written, which is out Monday morning, is I've been pretty critical of a lot of the tactical imbalances, and I think that, like you say, there is a staleness. And for the first time, really, I picked up on frustrations from the away end. The away end, it remains unflinching in terms of supporting Emery and how well they support, even in pretty abject performances, especially on the road. But you could sense the frustrations, when Mings was taking ages to pass the ball at 92nd minute, when Donya Marlin was about to come on, the ironic cheers. There's a few examples of the fans being frustrated, and I get Villa haven't been able to reinvest in PSR due to PSR and UEFA's restrictions. I get there is a staleness, and the players, the staff accept there needs to be freshness, and hopefully in this final week of the window there will be, and everyone's going to be on a big high again, like there was in January when Villa did really well on that final day. But at the moment, I don't think there's really excuse for that game, because Villa, even at 67%, I think could have won that game. They didn't have to be brilliant. I actually think Brentford, Emery said this as well after the game. He thought Brentford, the last 2 seasons, actually gave Villa harder tests. They were better then.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But this Villa team was so bad that they couldn't find a way, and they didn't look like scoring. And I thought for a team like Brentford, who are still quite vulnerable, give them the dues, they got the 3 points, well done. But I think they'll struggle. I still don't see a lot in that team. But Villa were so bad, and there were so many issues which we'll come on to in terms of the way they could have changed tactically, and that's on Emery. Obviously, we've always sung Emery's praises, and I've sometimes felt like I'm doing a lot of just favourable pieces to him, but he's deserved it, really. But you can still support a manager. I still think he's wonderful, but still criticise him. And ultimately, the last 2 games, he's got it wrong, and the players have accentuated his failings by being so bad, especially in the Brentford game, and the lack of intensity and the lack of desire really to turn it around was a massive flaw.
It's 3 games as well, isn't it? Because you include the last game of last season where we didn't score. That's 3 games without a goal. 3 games where I'd say tactically not looked brilliant. You mentioned Marlon. What does a guy have to do to start a game? It's one of the more bewildering selection things I think I've ever seen at Villa. Every time he plays, he looks good, but he just can't buy a start, despite the fact that we've got absolutely no width down that right-hand side whatsoever. Like when I saw the team yesterday, I know Kamara went off injured. I was like, surely it's going to be Kamara dropping into the back 3 and Cash is going to be allowed to go forward, surely. But no, it wasn't that. Cash had to tuck in, and McGinn's playing on the right-hand side, and I love John McGinn, and I think he's been brilliant under Emery, and I think he was brilliant at the back end of last season as well, and I find it hard to criticise John McGinn, to be honest. It's not his fault. If he's playing there, he's got to play as a right number 10, but he's always been forced to play as a winger, which just isn't him at all. It just isn't working.
Yeah, and I thought the same as you. I put a tweet out of an example of an image that was showed away to Everton last season with Kamara rolling into the right side centre-back position, we said this to you, I said this to you before the game actually. Cash pushing on, and that allows Tielemans, who had 23 touches against Newcastle, couldn't get the ball into a little bit deeper, and he can get on the ball in more favourable positions and work it. And I thought, okay, not ideal, but Villa found a solution for the wide, lack of width. They found a solution for Tielemans, and they found a solution for Mings being a left footer, but probably being able to go into the middle so it helps him, distribute the ball. But then I think it was 4 minutes 20 actually. I wrote that down. Villa got into their possession shape, and I just saw Cash offering on the halfway line, and McGinn actually looking around, checking the shoulder, and like backtracking to the side of the pitch, like as a right winger. And I thought, oh no. And this wasn't a remit of Cash overlapping. He didn't start overlapping until the second half. I just thought, oh, this is going to be trouble. You need something from the left wing, and yeah, that was the first issue. But then away to Fulham in February 2024, when Longley and Powell played together, two left-foot centre-backs.
Yeah, I remember it.
Emery actually worked it well because he played a back three, Cash dropped in, but he had Leon Bailey providing them width, obviously more comfortable. But then Villa also changed a few things in terms of the goal kick. So Powell would take the goal kick, or Longley would take the goal kick, and that meant they would pass it back to Martinez, and he'd start threading balls through, and that helped a little bit. Yesterday, first 5-10 minutes, Mings is getting pressed onto his right foot, and you thought, oh no. And these are things that probably most people identified as potential weaknesses, and yet Villa set up in that same way and didn't try to compensate for those weaknesses. So tactically, it was a weird performance. I know Emery likes to control games, and he's always loved to do that, and he likes to slow games down. But when you slow games down and you try and play in this control area, when it goes bad, it looks like you're just being passive and you're just basically letting the game coast. It's happened three times in a row now. Massive games last season, semi-final of the FA Cup. I just wonder if Villa can, change their approach almost and think, let's pretend we're playing at home to Everton, for example. Let's go fly at the traps. Let's go really attacking, and let's really match them and beat them, because we've got superior players. This touch, feeling his way into the game, little touches around the back, slowing the game down. McGinn on the right, Luca Dean, who's a good crosser, but he hasn't got the pace of Maatsen.
I thought he looked old yesterday for the first time.
He's not got, but he's not got any dynamism around him really, especially when Rodgers is looking like he's running on fumes from the 60th minute onwards. I don't think that helps. But yeah, Luca Dean's not started the season very well, but probably representative of a lot of the players at the moment.
Yeah, it's all well and good having possession. That's fine. That's great. And we did. But you got to have possession with purpose. And a lot of the time, it was very slow. It was very tedious. The game was crying out for some pace in the Villa side. It wasn't like there wasn't pace available to Villa either. They looked marginally better when Gasson and Marlon were on the pitch, and Maatsen as well. Sometimes, I'd like to have seen Maatsen on probably at half time, if I'm being honest, because it was clear some pace needed and some energy needed to be injected from somewhere. I posted this on social media after the game, Jacob, saying part of Villa's problem across the first games is that it feels like off the pitch / PSR, etc., has bled onto on the pitch. We don't look set. Everything feels up in the air, not a cohesive unit. I'll be glad when this transfer window is over. Now, a few people have agreed with that in fairness, but obviously, as is the way on social media, a lot of people have said I'm talking rubbish. Just to expand on that ever so slightly, it doesn't feel together. It does feel like a team that doesn't know where they stand. You hear the manager coming out and talking and saying, we're almost saying, some more players might go next week. Every player will know that if someone comes in for them, they might end up leaving next week. They know they need help as well. Is that help going to arrive? They'll know that they've lost probably 4 attacking players who probably, all of them in their own way, would have probably made Villa a better team yesterday, and they've not really been replaced because Gasson's early doors. So it feels like a team that's almost not ready for the start of the season, but they're playing games, and we're all just waiting for the end of August to kind of be set. But you'll have had 3 games by then. We can't be sitting on 0 wins after 3 games.
Yeah. Well, Emery said afterwards that he expected more departures earlier in the season, but I'm sure that's the case for a lot of clubs, really, and that can't be the key excuse. Of course, PSR and UEFA restrictions have been the overwhelming theme of the summer. And players, like I say, coaches, they're all well aware of it. And they do feel there is a sense of, I wouldn't say staleness like you would say, but there does need to be a lift from somewhere. And Emery's pushing for incomings. He always is pushing for incomings. But things are tight, you know. All you need potentially is a little bit of luck to go your way. So let's take Nicholas Jackson, for example, right? Chelsea won 80 million for him. Villa, nothing new's come out about Jackson in the last 10 days, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of Villa have always liked him. Emery would like him. But the only way you sign him is you sign him unless he amazingly reduces it to 15, 20 million, or alone,
Not going to happen.
exactly. So more likely, alone with an option. If Chelsea get desperate and they say, "Yeah, we'll do that," then might be a little bit of luck. Same with Nkunku, for example. Same with a few guys. But Villa need a little bit of luck, really, and they need to be very tight and very concerned with balancing the books, basically. I do think we're talking about PSR and SCR and all these anagrams, and we are given a little bit of an excuse to Villa. I think a lot of the things you saw yesterday went down to that. Of course, you might sign a player and that might help, but there were so many things wrong with that performance on the pitch, tactically, just a general application of the players. That's nothing to do with PSR. And these players are getting paid a lot of money. They should be at least running, and they should at least show a bit of more desire to actually win a game. Because, like I say, as soon as there was breakdowns in play in the first half, I looked round and I didn't see any players talking to each other. I didn't see any will to try and win the game. Brentford were vulnerable on crosses. They were vulnerable set plays, and Villa just kind of just let them stay vulnerable without really punishing them. So we can always talk about PSR. We can do this till the cows come home. Villa will certainly do, but ultimately you can't lose a game in that manner, like you did against a team that are vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about PSR and things being tight, this was a man that I probably did get at. Maybe, I don't think he was too strong, actually, because I think it's a fair point. Onana, we've not got money to spend, but we've spent £50 million on you in central midfield. Arguably, we didn't massively need you, because I don't think you're in the best 11. If I'm being perfectly honest with you, I actually thought when McGinn went to central midfield, I thought he did more in central midfield in the 10-15 minutes he was there than Onana did all game. Same with Bogard, actually, when he came into midfield as well. I thought they both offered more in that position than the £50 million, man. It's all well and good being a vibes, man, but you're 6'5". You've got to get around the pitch more. You've got to put yourself about the pitch more. We're playing against a Brentford midfield of Jordan Henderson and Yarmouk, and yet they look better than you. That's not acceptable for £50 million, Jacob.
No, but he's one of many that needs to do more. So I think you can kind of get his first season as a bit, not as a free hit, but you say there's mitigating circumstances. Injuries. Tillem is playing so well. Kamara obviously playing. But when you're £50 million, like you say, in a market where Villa can't really spend £50 million, you've got to do more. I do have a few concerns in terms of, I don't know if he's the type of player that is perfect playing the way Emery wants to play, in terms of he's not best receiving deep under pressure. I think he is actually sometimes a little bit too tall in a way. He's not got that sense of gravity where he can spin away like a Tielemans can. I do think he's pretty better as a box-to-box, but you need your £50 million midfielder to do a lot of things, and he didn't really do many things against Brentford. I still think there's immense potential there, but he needs to find another gear where he takes ownership of games. He doesn't just flourish them when things are going well. His goal last year against Newcastle, that's when Villa were already dominant, and he started to show his confidence. He needs to drag this team, up really in difficult moments for the price you're paying and the potential and the quality he has. So we need to see this, and hopefully we do. But we had this discussion probably 2 months ago, Dan. I honestly thought early in the summer he could potentially be one of the easiest solutions to allow Villa to reinvest if there was interest from Saudi clubs.
I think it's almost like pride here, because we mentioned, I think Villa put 22 first-team players under Unai Emery, and only 4 are part of the first team. We spent a lot of money on Diaby, who did okay in hindsight, but we sell him after a year. It's almost like pride of not wanting it, because we got Onana in 12, not wanting it to be him. But if you're asking me who I'd have rather lost out of him and Ramsey at the moment, it's him.
Yeah, I don't want to be too reactionary, because it is one game, and maybe we can talk in a month's time, and Onana's been brilliant, and you're so glad we kept him. But I do think there is kind of an issue with the recruitment at the moment, in terms of you've got to call a spade, and the signings from the last 2 summers. Let's see what happens in the last week of this window, right? But last summer, they've not really made a dent into Emery's strongest 11, and that means that the team will maybe have a little peak, because they're so good, but they'll generally flatline because they've been together for a while. There's only so much potential Emery can unlock on certain players, and then as they get older, teams start figuring you out. Lack of freshness, a lack of competition in those areas, you start to slowly go down. And I think some of these players need to find a way to lift themselves, but recruitment needs to be. I don't know about recruitment. Obviously, they've had to work in difficult constraints, and they've had to be box clever in terms of PSR signings and things like that. But at some point, when you do sign these players, 50 million, 37 million pound on the left back, Diaby, Marlon, you do expect at least one of them to be in your strongest 11.
Yeah, I think I can forgive Maatsen because he's sharing the position essentially. I think when he does play, I can see what they see in him. I can see that he's going to be an asset for us eventually, Maatsen, and he did have good games last season. But I do feel like our recruitment almost we're coasting by on the fact that Kamara and Tielemans cost £0. And I know that Kamara wasn't this regime, but we're almost coasting by on that. Like we got those 2 frees, but the rest of the stuff. It's not great when you look at it for £50 million. I expect a Tielemans or a Kamara out of Onana, and that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do think the wider recruitment team are scouting these players. They know who's good, and I do think they're actually doing a good job in terms of identifying. But then the next step is getting the approval of Monchi, of Emery, and then being convinced that these guys that you're identifying, whether it's data or heavy scouting, you can then sign them. Or do you think, okay, let's just rely on our contacts that we know from our previous success and then get those players in? Like in a sense here, like a João Felix, not the number 10 you found in a different league who is not as proven, but yes, huge upside. So I think there's a few chains that obviously they will be ironed out, and I'm sure they'll find someone, a player that will work, and they'll be back on the straight road again, like Morgan Rogers in a way. But right now, recruitment's not been great for 2 years really, but I do think there are good people at the club that can do well and can certainly iron things out.
I do think it was the 2 loan players in the second half of last season that gave us the impetus. They just gave us something. They lifted standards, and they seemed to lift the spirits at that point when they came in. That's what we need now. Like you said, we need a lift from somewhere. Needs a player to come in and just inject something into this group and back into the club. Look, I do podcasts and stuff. Not that my podcasts count for much, but the whole mood is flat. I feel flat by Villa at the moment.
And the players, and as Emery was so clear in his words yesterday, he feels flat, and he's going to be pushing for signings. And I'd be surprised if they don't sign anybody, because if they don't, it shows a couple of things. One thing is that my word, restrictions are so tight. Second thing is they've not been able to move enough players on. And third, you think, well, this is a really disappointing window, and it's not just going to disappoint fans; it's going to disappoint players and Emery as well. So you risk worsening the mood in the squad. And I apologise, this is quite a downcast podcast, but it's just a reaction. But I do think let's give them a benefit of doubt till the end of the window. Let's judge it then, because I'm sure we'll do a podcast a couple of days after the final day of the window. So 1 or 2 players will come in. I think maybe good players that that haven't been linked to yet.
Here he is. This is what he does on these shows, Tanswell. Just when you're feeling down, he wants to pick you back up with a little tidbit where you feel like he knows something. Just when I'm out, you reel me back in any time.
And I think within that one link, or within that one deal, everything will be picked up again. So let's just see what happens.
I just don't like that after the season started, like it's here. I don't know that we're still talking about people. I know, I get it. Villa, you're right, Villa aren't alone. But I watched Fulham today. Some practically nobody. They still put it about. I still watched them and thought, they had a good go today. They put in 110% Fulham. Well done. They got back in, and they got a point. I had bloody Grealish for Everton. Just seeing that thing, thinking what he could do in this team perfect. I think it was perfect for us, and we couldn't do it because of we didn't even try. By the sounds of it, but we wouldn't have been able to do it even if we'd have wanted to. Just general football is really frustrating right now.
Yeah, and I think you can be critical of the team's performance against Brentford, but then you can just say, let's just hold our criticism on the transfers until the end of the window. And that's what I'm kind of doing. I think obviously the restriction stuff is that case. But let's see what happens the next week. At the same time, Brentford was unacceptable. I think some of the decisions were very questionable. Wendy are coming on. We've not even talked about that. You might as well just cut to the chase and said, McGinn, you're going 10, Marlon, you're coming on right wing straight away. I don't know why.
Why didn't we do that? Yeah.
But it wasn't like they were causing huge threats down either side, and McGinn had to really track back. Marlon could have done that. So those issues on Saturday were the big frustration for me. I'm not frustrated yet with the window. Let's see what happens, and let's hopefully see a winger, attacking midfielder, that type of player, an exciting one, quick one coming through.
Okay, wise words from Aston Villa's athletic correspondent, Jacob Tanswell. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Good luck with your endeavours tomorrow, Jacob.
Thank you very much.
Will people be able to, obviously I know what you're doing, but will people be able to find out about what you do? Okay.
I'll probably post on it by the time this comes out, but yeah, it'll be exciting, but I'll have egg on my face afterwards.
Okay. I watched the documentary of one of the people that you're with tomorrow recently.
Oh, you like it?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of other sports, but I'm a big fan of him. So yeah, I watched that documentary on the way back from my holiday on the plane recently. So yeah, I send him my best regards. You won't know who I am, but send my best regards anyway. Let's go, Jacob. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you to those that have watched on YouTube. If you could subscribe with your post notifications on, give us a like and a comment. And there's another thing that you can do on YouTube. You can subscribe. Did I say subscribe with your post notifications on?
Yeah.
I can't even remember what I'm saying anymore. Just do all the good things that we always ask for on YouTube. Check out NordVPN as well if you want some extra football in your life. And if you're listening via Apple or Spotify, 5 stars, reviews, comments are all appreciated. And keep your eyes on our social so you know when content is coming out next. If you want to watch my raw reaction to the Brentford game, I wouldn't advise jumping straight on and doing a podcast straight after a game usually, but I did do that yesterday. So if you want to go back and hear a less reasonable version of what I've just done, go back and listen to that live from yesterday. Jack, have you got anything coming up that you want to plug quickly?
No, I think it's all going to be transfers. All transfers for the next week. After that, we can focus on the good stuff. But right now, it's just going to be transfers and seeing what's going on. Very busy.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much to Jacob again, and thank you to you, the viewer, the audience. Thank you very much. I'm on the Guardian Football Weekly tomorrow if you want to check out that general review of the Premier League as well. So, yeah, let's go. Thank you again. We'll end, as always, with an Up the Villa from me and an Up the Villa from Sneaky Transfers boy now, Jacob Tanswell.
Up the Villa.